Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Metcalf.
The court, my lord, thank you for the record. I still appear for the responding on this matter.
Thank you.
Duly assisted by Mr. Mrendeze, as well as Mr. Nyao.
Thank you. Good morning, councils.
I will hand over to Mr. Beerkes, Your Worship, who still busy with the applicant as witness in this matter. As you please.
Thank you, Mr. Metcalf. Yes, Mr. Beerkes.
Yes, it please the court, my lord. My lord, on the previous sitting, we indicated that we would still take final instructions to determine whether we will need any further evidence in examination in chief. But our instructions are that we will need no further evidence, and that is the case of the applicant.
Okay.
As it please the court.
Thank you. Should the applicant not be in the witness stand? Mr. Beerkes, can the applicant move to the witness stand? Morning, Mr. Hatuikulipi.
My lord, there is a mic on my podium which I intend to use for writing. I don't know who the broadcaster is. Perhaps if they can just remove it for me.
I hope if it's placed down, it will still be able to pick up your voice. I believe that is the intended purpose.
Yes.
I will allow the owner of the microphone to position it differently.
Can it pick up if it's down? Down is down.
Yes, I'll just go. Mr. Hatuikulipi, I'll remind you that you are still under oath, and I'll allow counsel for the state to proceed with cross-examination.
Okay, my lord.
Mr. Hatuikulipi, how well do you know Mr. Ricardo Gustavo?
Mr. Ricardo Gustavo is a friend of my cousin, James Hatuikulipi. That's how I know Mr. Ricardo Gustavo.
How well do you know Mr. Ricardo Gustavo?
How well?
Yes.
I said I know him through my cousin, James Hatuikulipi. He's a friend of James Hatuikulipi.
How would you describe the relationship between you and Mr. Ricardo Gustavo?
Our relationship only started in prison now.
In prison.
Correct.
Prior to prison, you had no relationship apart from knowing him only as the
My Lord, I apologize for the interjection. It's just we having difficulty hearing on this side. Perhaps my learned friend can just raise his voice, and I'd also ask then that the witness raises his voice. They seem to be speaking into the ground. I do apologize,
Okay.
but it's not only me, it's my learned friend, Mr. Beatrice, as well.
That's in order. I believe
Yes.
they take note of that.
Before prison, you had no relationship with Ricardo at all.
Ricardo Gustavo, like what I said, I know him as James' cousin. Sorry, as James' friend. And Ricardo Gustavo, I know him also as a businessman.
Okay?
Yeah.
Did you have any businesses with Ricardo Gustavo prior prison?
Prior prison. So I've testified that Ricardo Gustavo approached me in 2013 to discuss certain aspect of fishing sector where he was experiencing distribution challenges.
Okay. And that was the first engagement you had with Mr. Ricardo Gustavo
About what now?
about the fishing sector.
Yes.
Is there any other engagements that you had with Mr. Ricardo Gustavo before that?
My lord, but I'm telling you that 20.
Believe you may proceed.
Repeat your question.
Is there any other business engagements that you had with Mr. Ricardo Gustavo before that one?
No.
With regards to what company did he come to you to discuss distribution challenges?
The company that he was involved at that time.
Which one? Did he tell you?
He did, but I forgot the name.
Okay. But it was definitely not Namgomar.
No, it's not Namgoma.
And according to your testimony, you then gave him a list, which he later paid 400,000 for.
Correct.
What was contained in that list, Mr.?
Repeat your question.
What was contained in the list that you gave to Mr. Ricardo?
Are you asking what was the list?
What was in the list? It's a list. What was contained in that list?
List of clients.
Clients.
Yes.
Can you name the clients?
A lot. I cannot name clients now. There were a lot. And I don't want to lie to the court.
Can you remember but one?
My lord, I had a lot of clients. I cannot remember which one did I give to him. I had a lot of clients, my lord.
Okay. Can you recall how many clients, at least the number that were on this list that was worth 400,000?
I don't want to lie to the court. That's what I'm telling you. I don't have any documents with me.
Okay. These clients, what were they for? What were your business with these clients that you gave to Ricardo?
As I've testified, these clients used to buy fish from Namibia for onward selling in Angola. But they could no longer buy fish from Namibia because of foreign exchange regulation that trap payments in Angola.
All right. Now, so at least by 2013, you had given up all your clients in Angola to Mr. Ricardo Gustavo. Is that what you're saying?
Not all of them. I said some of them.
And what about the rest?
They were still there in Angola.
Were they still buying fish from you?
Who now? Those clients now.
The ones that you left for yourself?
What I said, there was a problem. Foreign exchange regulation
Yes.
in Angola. They could no longer source fish
Right.
from Namibia.
Mr. Hatuikulipi, just to remind you of what your counsel indicated earlier, that maintain your voice at an audible level, so that they can hear.
Oh, they can, okay. Thank you,
Yes.
my lord.
Now, if they could no longer source fish from you, why didn't you give all of them to Mr. Ricardo Gustavo?
My lord, I don't know how to answer you now. So I've
Yes.
told you, I only give some of the clients to Mr. Ricardo Gustavo.
Did you understand my question?
Then repeat it, my lord.
Now, what are you answering?
What you're asking?
If these clients, in their entirety, were not going to source fish from you as from 2013 onwards, why didn't you give all of them to Ricardo Gustavo?
Why must I give him all of them?
So, as I understand you, you did not sell fish to Angola from 2013.
Repeat your question.
Are you listening to me, or do you have something that is bothering you?
No. Nothing is bothering
From
just-
2013, you did not sell fish to Angolan clients. Is that your testimony now?
Correct.
When did you receive the 400,000 payment for this list that you gave in 2013?
I cannot remember when was it paid to me.
What was the agreement for payment for this list when you met Mr. Ricardo in 2013? When was he supposed to pay you?
The agreement was that when those clients started buying fish from them, I'll be paid a fee from the sale of the fish.
So, when did you generate this list? When did you start selling this fish to Angola?
When did I start?
Yes.
Since 2012.
Since 2012. And where were you sourcing this fish from?
Semeji.
Can you speak
Semeji.
up, sir?
Semeji.
So you sold fish only for Samerji only 2012, and then at least until mid 2013 when you then gave up your list.
Yeah, for those clients now.
When in 2012, sir?
Cannot remember.
The month,
I said I cannot remember, Mr. Ipinge.
quarter of the year?
Cannot remember, Mr. Ipinge.
What was the value of the fish approximately that you sold into the Angolan market through Samerji, according to you, as per this list?
I cannot remember.
Can you
Mr.
estimate?
I cannot.
All right. Now, Mr. Gustavo also testified in a bail application. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I know he was before court
No.
for his bail application.
Okay. Now, in that bail application, he spoke about his involvement in Angola. Do you understand that?
I'm listening.
And he also, in details, spoke about his businesses and prior businesses in Angola. Do you get that?
I'm listening.
Do you confirm that this Ricardo Gustavo is one of the accused persons whom you are charged with?
Yes, he's accused number one.
It's accused number one.
He's released on bail.
Okay. In his bail application, he spoke as follows with regards to his businesses at page 123 of the record. I'll give it to you so that you are sure of what I'm saying. It has been underlined for you to read it, what he says.
Okay.
Can you read from line number 15 to the rest of the page?
Where you have underlined now.
Yes.
And so in 2009, my Lord, I set up this business called Tunga Financial Services, which in essence did some work in consulting or the benefit consulting space in the financial services. But the larger part of that business, my Lord, was brokering between Namibia and Angolan entity, particularly Namibia, South Africa entity that were looking to enter the Angolan market.
Continue.
Business that I was involved with in that period are Old Mutual Namibia, Metropolitan Namibia, Alexandra Forbes Namibia, and other small entities and individuals were looking to capitalize in one or other sector in the Angolan market. I had developed my own network at the time in the Angolan market, and therefore these businesses saw it fit for me to spearhead their entry into the Angolan market. On the reverse side of that, my Lord, I got involved with a business called Preseld.
Okay. Turn around the page. Continue reading.
Was at the time the central procurement entity for the armed forces of the Republic of Angola. Then this is the code. Must I continue? Give that name again. Say Preseld.
Okay. Can I have it? So, according to Mr. Gustavo, the only business he was dealing during those years was in the financial sector, isn't it?
I'm with you.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
The second one is pre-sealed, which is with or procurement for government, the NDF, or
Correct.
their counterpart of the NDF in Namibia.
Correct.
There is no indication whatsoever in his testimony, and the entirety of his testimony, I've read it, that he was involved in the fishing industry in 2013, distributing fish.
My Lord, I also went through Mr. Gustavo's bail record. He testified that in this thing, that in 2012, he had clients from Angola or people that he was associating with that were looking for an operator in the fishing sector in Namibia. So he contacted a Chinese company called Pacific Anderson, if I remember the name correctly, that was represented by a Chinese businessman, Mr. Kent, if I remember the name. That was in 2012. So he's talking about fishing.
I'll give you the record to read exactly that portion.
Okay, thank you.
Can you read from where I've underlined? What page is that? If I can just, 124.
126.
126. At the 15th line.
I'm there.
Can you read for the record?
I then spoke to a company that was based in Namibia, Chinese company, actually called Pacific Enders. We met with the CEO, Mr. Kent, here, who was based here in Windhoek and had interest here in the fishing sector.
Continue.
I tapped him to understand whether he would have an appetite for joining this Angolan friend of mine or this Angolan entity to do or to help them catch their quota. Nothing came of those discussions, my lord. For various reasons, I think they did not understand the Angolan market. They thought it was a bit risky for them, and also I think globally, just seeing that at the time they did not have a good reputation.
Continue.
And so I spoke to James. I said, look, I've got these people that are looking for someone to help me. And he sent me a presentation of Semeji Group, which I forwarded onto this individual. And I said, look, if you want to take it further, let me know. I can set you up with James. But also nothing came out of it.
So that is 2012.
Correct.
Nothing came out of it.
I'm with you.
No,
No, it's what
you
he's
don't
saying.
need to be with me.
It's what he's saying.
He said nothing came of these discussions in 2012.
Yes, that's what he said.
So
What is
Sir,
important, he's
listen.
talking about
No, no.
fishing here.
listen. Yes,
And you said he was not involved.
listen. My question was on the distribution of fish. Did you understand that?
I do.
In 2012 already, nothing had come off the issues where a client of his wanted somebody to go catch for them.
That specific line.
Do you understand there?
Yes, I do.
So, sir, In 2013, according to his evidence at least, there was no need for him to source for clients to distribute fish because nothing came of it, isn't it? It's logic.
My Lord, in my previous bail application, I have testified, or it was in my affidavit, and I've explained how I was involved with Ricardo Gustavo in 2013, when he approached me to discuss certain aspect of fishing sector, where he was experiencing distribution challenges. Then Mr. Ricardo Gustavo and I, our discussion culminated in a verbal agreement with their business associate regarding the business in Angola. Wait, regarding the business in Angola.
Mr. Tamson, did you understand my question?
No, I'll get there. I'll get there. I'll get there.
Objection. If my learned friend is asking the witness a question, he must allow the witness to explain, because he's saying that there was no, the question was in essence that it is common cause that it did not culminate into, nothing would have happened from that. Now he is explaining that question, that proposition that was put to him, because it is not common cause. It's only common cause to my learned friend, and the witness should be allowed to give a proper explanation to what he deems it is not common cause according to Mr. Ipinge's views. As it please the court.
Mr. Ipinge, just be a little patient with the witness to give his reply before you interject him.
Yes, but my Lord, I stand from the point where my question was clear and straightforward.
Yes.
That logic dictates, according at least to that evidence of Mr. Ricardo,
Yes.
besides his bail application and what he said in his bogus story in this affidavit, that does not speak to him seeking distribution clients in the middle of 2013, and he must answer that.
Yes, I expect him to answer the question. I thought he was still coming to the question. Let's hear what he says.
Yes, I'm guided by the court, my Lord.
Yes. You may proceed, Mr. Hatuikulipi.
So, my Lord, my previous bail application, I've indicated that Ricardo Gustavo approached me in 2013 to discuss certain aspects of the fishing sector where he was experiencing distribution challenges on account of infrastructure, my Lord, and with general economy and regulation. So our discussion with Ricardo Gustavo culminated in a verbal agreement with his business employer or his business associate regarding the business in Angola. Importantly, I was able to share a list of my clients to Ricardo Gustavo in Angola. Clients that were purchasing or that were looking for frozen fish for onward selling through the Angolan market, but could no longer source from Namibia as foreign exchange regulation trap payment in Angola. So Ricardo Gustavo and his business associate, they took over my client list with his business associate. And as part of the business arrangement, they agreed to pay me a fee from the sale of those fish. So a payment was made from a company called Namgoma Peshka to my company, Erongo Clearing and Forwarding. So Mr. Gustavo gave a confirmatory affidavit confirming what I've said in my previous bail application, my Lord. So he confirmed.
What does that confirmatory affidavit state, Mr. Hatuikulipi?
He said he confirmed everything that I've said in my affidavit, and he signed it.
Did you understand my question? According to the evidence that he placed on record in his bail application, he said nothing came of the discussion in 2012. Are you now saying his version in that bail application in your confirmatory affidavit is different.
He's talking about 2012. I don't know now. Is it the same client or is it a different client that you got again in 2013? Did you ask him that?
And I'll ask you to go to page 179 of that record. Now I'll take you to the exact portion. 79. Again from line number 15, can you just read what Mr. Ricardo says about you?
All right. What about Mr. Tamson Hatuikulipi? Also someone that I know. Since when? Well, I've known him as James' cousin. Since when? My lord, let my computer just run a little bit. I've known him as James' cousin, probably also since the late 1990s or early 2000s. Were you friends with him as well? No, our friendship only kicked off very well. We have known each other obviously, but our friendship only, or our association, that we started to know each other, sort of talk, get to know who we really are, is now in prison.
Okay. So prior to you people's arrest in 2019, late and early 2020, he only knew you as James' cousin. That's it, according to his testimony there.
Yes, what he's saying.
From what he's saying there, it appears you are insignificant to him, isn't it?
A lot.
Apart from you being a James' cousin, you are not an associate, you are nothing, you're just known as James' cousin.
If I understand, how was the question asked? Kucha, what about Tamson? How do you know Tamson? So he explained to the court that he knows Tamson as James' cousin. You did not ask him what business did you have with Tamson. It doesn't talk about business here.
Listen. When he was asked about you, do you agree with me that the list that you apparently provided in 2013 was quite valuable?
According to him now.
No,
Or
you.
According to me.
Was that list valuable, sir?
We are talking about clients. Clients is valuable.
And the payment you got of 400,000, it appears that this was 400,000 is a substantive amount. It's quite a huge amount, considering that it was even in 20 or in the region of 2013, 2014, 2015.
A huge amount to who now?
It was a substantial amount.
Who said it's a huge amount?
400,000 is a substantial amount.
To you?
Yes.
Okay.
How do you value 400,000, Mr. Tamson?
I cannot answer that question.
Is it peanuts to you?
I cannot answer that question, I said.
Why not?
I don't want to answer to you.
You don't want to answer to
Yeah.
it. Now I'm putting to you as a fact that 400,000 is a substantive amount, substantial amount.
That's what you are saying.
You have no comment to that.
No comment.
So, for Mr. Ricardo to have paid you this huge amount of money, he must have made some substantial amount from these clients that you don't even know that you gave to him.
I don't know. I cannot comment on that.
You cannot comment on that. A man that you have given a list worth 400,000, why would he describe you in such an insignificant manner?
I cannot comment.
My Lord, sorry, I have an objection here. I don't want to interrupt my learned friend's cross-examination, but I've been settling and I've been listening to the last sequence of questions. Most of these questions relate to the state of mind of Mr. Ricardo Gustavo. And unfortunately, the applicant would not be able to answer these questions. These were the questions that the state had to put before Mr. Ricardo Gustavo when he was testifying during his bail application. Why there's a discrepancy between these things, why he explained it like this. Because they did have the bail record of the applicant, they did have his affidavit, they did have the confirmatory affidavit of Mr. Ricardo Gustavo at that point in time when they were doing his bail application in this honorable court. So they can't ask the applicant question as to the state of mind of Mr. Ricardo. That should have been done earlier, as pleased the court.
My Lord, these witnesses have testified to their relationship with Mr. Ricardo, and that is what I'm canvassing with these questions, and pointing out the discrepancies between their testimonies under oath.
Yes, I find that relevant.
Yes.
I'll allow it.
Why would a man that you gave a valuable list describe you so insignificantly?
I will not know, my lord.
In actual fact, he says he did not even talk or associate with you in his bail application. And that is the emphasis. He did not even talk or associate with you. Why would he say that?
My lord, Mr. Ricardo confirmed what I have testified. What I have testified in my previous bail application is what I have even testified in this current bail application. So I stand to my version. That's what happened between me and Ricardo Gustavo. If Mr. Ricardo is giving a different version, that is for Mr. Ricardo to answer.
Mr. Ipinge,
Yes.
I just want to establish which proceedings are those from which you are
Yes.
referencing.
Yes. We will provide a copy of the bail record to the court.
Oh, okay.
Yes. These are the proceedings of Mr. Ricardo's bail application in the High Court.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You agree with me that you never called, neither were you cross-examined in your, you never called Mr. Ricardo Gustavo in the initial bail application. Is that correct?
Repeat your question.
Mr. Ricardo Gustavo, you never called him to be cross-examined in the initial bail application?
I never called him.
Yes.
No.
No. Do you agree with me that at least now the versions that you gave to the court and that what is contained there, they are different?
Which version are you talking about? The one that I gave in my previous bail application? Are you asking about the one that I gave in my previous bail application?
Your version that you testified before this court in your examination in chief,
Yes.
and the version of Mr. Ricardo Gustavo in his bail application before this court, as per that record, is different.
The version that I have testified in my previous bail application and the version that I have testified in my current bail application is still the same version.
You understand my question?
I'll get there. And there was a confirmatory affidavit. So the version
Mr.
of Mr. Ricardo Gustavo that you are talking about in this, if it's a different one, that is for Mr. Ricardo to answer.
Mr. Tamson, did you understand my question?
I do.
Repeat my question.
You say the version that Ricardo that is saying in this current bail application, his former bail application in the High Court, is different to what I've said.
Now answer that question.
I'm saying my version is still the same from my previous bail application.
Did I ask you about your versions? I'm saying the version that you gave to this court in your examination, Chief, is different from the version that Mr. Ricardo Gustavo gave in his bail application before the same court.
Yes, it's different.
Yes, thank you. Why were you trying to evade that question so much, Mr.
Trying to make you
Tamson?
understand. I'm not Ricardo Gustavo.
I'll move on. Do you know when Samerji first came to Namibia?
Lord, I only know when I met them. I met them in November 2011.
Mr. Thompson, are we going to do this the whole day? Did you hear my question?
Repeat your question.
What were you answering to?
What I understood.
Do you know when Samerji got involved in Namibia?
Got involved, or when did they come into Namibia?
When did they come into Namibia, sir?
2011.
2011. When in 2011?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you know if they had employed any other people in Namibia to enter the fishing industry of Namibia?
Employed
Yes. In Namibia, Namibians.
in 2011.
Yes.
There was no operation in 2011 for Samerji.
Before you, do you know if they had contacted other people to facilitate entering into the Namibian fishing industry?
I know they were in contact with Nobeth,
With nobody.
Chombonde, yes.
Do you know of a person called Willie Human?
No.
Do you know of a person called Petrus Nehoya?
I heard about him from Johannes.
Did you have heard about him? Have you ever met him before?
Yes, I did. He used to transport Johannes. They used to be together driving for him.
When was the first time that you met Mr. Petrus Nehoya?
Cannot remember. Somewhere 2011.
Somewhere 2011.
Correct.
Where did you meet Mr. Petrus Nehoya?
Petrus Nehoya, if I remember very correctly, I met him downstairs at Hilton Hotel, at the lobby.
When?
2011, somewhere 2011.
What was this date of any significance with relations to this man?
No.
On the day that you met him at the lobby, did you meet anyone else in relations to this matter?
Which matter now? Repeat your question.
Matter that have brought us before court, the Namgoma matter and the Fishko matter.
That time there was no Namgoma that you are talking about. Because when I went through Ricardo's,
Listen to my question, Mr. Tamson. You met him at the Hilton.
correct?
Did you meet any other person
No,
involved in this Fishko and Namgoma matter?
no.
No. Was Mr. Petrus Nehoya present when you first met the Samerji group of companies representatives?
I cannot remember that. Him being present.
You cannot remember
I
him
cannot
being
remember
present.
that.
What were you doing at the Hilton on that day when you met Mr. Petrus Nehoya there?
Nobeth called me that he want to see me. So I was busy with my businesses around town. So we agreed to meet after an hour, but I did not turn up. He called again, said he want to see me. It's very urgent. So I asked him, where are you? He said he's at Hilton Hotel. So he asked where I am. I said, I'm at Auspanplatz. I was in the bank. So I said, okay, I'll see you now. So I was wearing a shirt, so I went to Nobeth. He said he's having these other investors from Iceland. And they are interested in investing in land-based factories, in fishing. You want to introduce me to them. So he told me, you cannot go meet them like that. I must go change. I told him, no, there's nothing wrong with it. Wearing a shirt is not a problem. What is important is to go hear what they want. So when I went now with Nobeth up at Hilton Hotel at the executive lounge, that Mr. Petrus, I didn't even know him. He was sitting at the lobby, sitting there drinking his beer. So we went up. Nobeth introduced me to Johannes Stephenson.
You remember my previous question? Were you meeting anyone who was involved in this matter? You do know that Mr. Stephenson is one of the key witnesses here.
Correct?
You said no.
My Lord, you asked me, did I meet anyone? That I have already testified. It's before court. That I have met that I met Johannes Stephenson in 2011. That is already before court.
Which month was this that you met Mr. Petrus Nehoya
I did not meet him. I saw him
there?
there. There's a difference between meet and seeing someone.
So, who told you that that was Petrus Nehoya?
Nobeth.
No. What was significant about him for Nobeth to find it important to tell you who he was?
Because when we entered, he greeted him. He says the guy who's transporting Johannes them. They are investors now.
So, Mr. Petrus Nehoya, was he also present when you met Johannes Stephenson then?
When the first time, he was not present when I met Johannes.
The second time?
He was not present.
So, according to you, he was never present at any meeting that you met Mr. Johannes Stephenson?
Not at any meeting.
Can you tell us who were present at that meeting?
The first meeting,
Yes,
Johannes.
Johannes?
Nobeth.
Nobeth?
That's it, the first meeting.
My Lord, moving to another point, I see it's, I think this will be the appropriate time to adjourn for tea.
You wish to do that? You wish to adjourn? Council? Do you wish to adjourn? Okay. For how long should we break?
Usually it's just 30 minutes, ma'am.
30 minutes.
Yes.
So we'll be back at 11:30.
Yes.
Okay, we'll adjourn. May I proceed?
As the court pleases. Mr. Tamson, I just want us to recap. I asked you, when did you meet Mr. Petrus Nehoya? And you said you couldn't remember. After that, I asked you, on the day that you met him, did you meet anyone of significance to the Namgoma and the Fish Cometa that brought us to court? You said, no, you did not meet anyone. Do you remember that?
As I said, I do not remember anyone from Namgoma or Fishco.
Of significance to the case, you said you didn't meet anyone. Of the case?
Did you say of the case?
Yes.
Johannes Stephenson. I met him that day. I say it was under oath that I met him in 2011.
But when I asked you in the beginning, you said you didn't meet anyone.
I didn't understand your question.
When you do not understand my question, because this has been your excuse to try and evade all my questions that I'm putting to you. We have just been here an hour and you have already been evasive. I want you to ask me to repeat my question before you answer it.
I'll do that, Mr. Iping.
Because now, on that day, you recall where you were wearing shorts, you were in the bank, you recall all those details, correct?
Correct.
When was this day that you met Mr. Stephenson?
The same day.
When was it?
That Nobeth called me.
Which year, which month, when?
2011, November.
November. Did you meet was there any further meetings with regards to your meeting or follow-up meetings from the Hilton?
After the first meeting now?
Yes.
Yes, there was a second meeting.
When was this second meeting?
I cannot remember. There was a second meeting.
Which month was it?
The same month.
The same month. Where was this meeting?
At the Hilton Hotel.
Who was present at this second meeting?
So I testify. It was Mr. Aldesten Helgesen, Ngwa Juliusen, and Nobeth, and Johannes Stephenson.
Johannes Stephenson. Was Mr. Nehoya present at that meeting?
No, he was not.
That's not. I put it to you that Mr. Willie Humed and Petrus Nehoya, prior to the Sameji's meeting with you, they were contracted for a whole year to help, without success, the Samerji to enter the fishing industry. Can you dispute that?
I'm not aware of that. I'm only aware of Nobeth, Chombonde.
So in addition to Willie and Nehoya, there's also Nobeth.
I only met Nobeth. Nobeth was the one who was assisting Sameji.
Okay. At the second meeting and or the first meeting, what were you discussing with the Samerji group of companies?
No, what happened, Nobeth introduced me to Johannes Stephenson. Tamson Hatuikulipi is a businessman. Then Johannes mentioned to me of Sameji Group's intention of doing business in Namibia. Then Johannes told me how he had messed up the operation of Sameji, of his employer in Morocco, which caused his employer a loss of approximately $2.5 million, mainly due to his abuse of alcohol and substance abuse, which took away his focus.
What was the main aim of this meeting, Mr. Tamson?
He just introduced me. That's what I'm answering. He introduced me.
To do what?
He's told me that, Tamson, I want to introduce you to these investors that are interested in investing in land-based factory. That's what Nobeth told me, my lord.
in Staffordson?
Then
What
from
did
there,
he tell you?
Stephenson told me of their intention of doing business in Namibia.
Where?
In Namibia,
On what?
fishing.
Fishing.
Yes.
And what were you supposed to do yourself?
No, he just first mentioned to me that about their intention.
Okay.
And on the third meeting, that's how we get now into detail.
The second meeting, what was discussed there?
The second meeting, Johannes only introduced me to Mr. Aldersten and Algerson and Mr. Ingwa Juliusen. Then Johannes Stephenson presented to me the profile of Semeji Group of Company
Yeah.
on a slideshow from his laptop. And at that second meeting, it was that second meeting that he inquired about my recent wedding. That was roughly 1 month before we met.
What was being discussed at this second meeting apart from the profile slideshow?
That's all what was discussed.
The fishing industry or you being involved in the fishing industry was not discussed.
They're only talking about their company, Semeji.
It's a major.
Correct.
But when you went to the second meeting, you already knew these people wanted to enter into the fishing industry of Namibia.
That's what Johannes told me.
Okay? So by the time you went to, you see, you must listen to my question and answer it as I ask it. By the time you went to the second meeting, you knew that this was relating to Samerji entering the fishing industry in Namibia. Is that correct?
To invest in a land-based factory in Namibia in the fishing sector, correct?
Correct. And was there any importance for you or to show any relations to the Minister of Fisheries?
Repeat your question.
Was there any importance for you to show your relations to the Minister of Fisheries at those meetings?
I don't get your question. Repeat it.
Was there any importance for you to show at these meetings your relations to the Minister of Fisheries? What, is it, are you having pains answering the question or you don't understand the
I
question?
just don't understand your question. Yeah.
Words, put it differently.
Was there any importance for you to show these people from Samerji your proximity to the Minister of Fisheries?
To show. My Lord, in the second meeting, like what I've testified, what was discussed there is a profile of Semeji Group of Company. And they asked me, Johannes asked me about my recent wedding. That was 1 month before we met. And I was surprised when he asked me. So I asked him, where did you get this information? He told me, I must not worry. So he asked me to show him the pictures of my wedding. So I showed, I'm getting...
Are we going to do this the whole day?
If the witness is explaining, the manner within which my learned friend is asking the questions are quite a bit difficult. And the witness can only respond as to how he understands. And he's explaining, if I may finish my objection, if my learned
Because
friend
this
can just have the common courtesy to allow me to finish.
If the objection includes an answer to my questions, then I'm entitled to rise up. Because what my learned friend is doing is brings an objection and give the answer. And that is not what is the purpose of objections. He can only object if my things are irrelevant.
You mean answer to your question?
Yes. He's testifying from the bar.
I thought he's saying that you should allow the witness to explain. In other words, you interjected the witness. You are not happy with how he started answering the question. I thought he started quite far from what you asked, but I still expected him to touch on the question, and it's still upon you to say you did not answer my question, and then he'll respond according to how he feels he should answer the question. So all that I thought he stood to object on was for you to interject the witness.
He already made that point, and then he was now going on.
Okay, I understand that.
Yes, and that is not acceptable.
All right. Well, the question is still clear, Mr. Hatuikulipi. Just deal with the question. And also, Way is quite straightforward. Do not elaborate. Just deal with the question that is asked. All right. Do you still recall the question?
Yeah.
All right.
My lord, after he asked me, Johannes, to show him the pictures of my wedding, so him and his colleagues, they were now going through the pictures. They said, "Oh, this is your wife?" I said, "Yes." "The daughter of the minister?" And I asked, "How do you know?" He said, "No, Tamson, don't worry." So that's all.
So you were not the one that gave this information to them.
Like what I've testified, Johannes,
Mr.
no, I'm not.
Please, why are you being evasive? You did not find any need to show that you were in close proximity to the Minister of Fisheries.
No.
We'll come back to that. Say, prior to 2011, what businesses were you conducting? Can we just go through them again?
I've been in gambling.
Mm-hmm.
I've been more in entertainment, gambling, video games, jukeboxes, and pool tables.
And Kawash.
And a car wash.
Yes.
The car wash came 2012.
2012.
2012, yes.
Okay. You did not have at that point any fish shops.
No.
You did not have quotas,
No.
fishing quotas.
I never had quotas.
You never had fishing rights.
No.
You most definitely do not have a vessel.
No.
You do not have, at least by the 1st of October 2011, your only proximity to the fishing industry was perhaps eating fish.
I don't have comment on that one. What do you mean by eating fish?
Your only relation to the fishing industry by the 1st of October 2011
Not 1st
was
of
nothing.
October. Not 1st of October. November.
Sir, my date is clear. By the 1st of October 2011, your only proximity to the fishing industry was nothing.
Yes.
You are not a lawyer. You do not draft agreements. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Your only qualification, at least by the 1st of October, was only in IT, a certificate from IIT.
That's correct.
So, with that in the background, maybe before that question, after the 1st of November, out of the 1st of October, more specifically on the 8th of October 2011, when you married the daughter to the Minister of Fisheries, would you agree with me that your proximity to the fishing industry significantly changed?
Repeat your question.
When you married the daughter of the Minister of Fisheries, your proximity to the fishing industry significantly changed.
Yes, it changed because I get now involved in a different businesses now.
No. Not after the 8th, on the 8th of October when you got married.
No, man. Don't agree with you.
On that day, you became the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries.
Then you must ask like that. Yes, I became the son-in-law because I'm married to a daughter.
And that significantly brought you closer to the fishing industry, Mr. Tamson.
No, what brought me closer was Nobeth
Mr.
Chombonde.
That brought you closer to the Minister of Fisheries, isn't it?
No, I'm not agreeing with it.
Sir, you became the son-in-law of the minister, isn't it?
Correct,
You became family, isn't it?
correct.
What does father-in-law mean to you?
You know, must. Married to a daughter.
Listen here. No. You cannot, and I asked the court to warn the witness not to ask me questions. You are not here to ask me questions. I'm the one asking you questions.
Okay.
So, seeing that you had no knowledge whatsoever, you had no experience in the fishing industry at all, why was it necessary for Nobeth to introduce you to Samerji?
Because I was doing good in my businesses. They could see my movement. That's the reason they contacted me.
Which movement?
My business that I was doing.
Which businesses?
I was doing pretty well.
Which businesses, sir?
Gambling businesses.
Which one?
What do you mean, which one? The one that I own.
The gambling one.
Correct, in Khobades.
Nothing to do with the fishing industry.
No.
Right. Pool tables, nothing to do with the fishing
Correct.
industry. Right. Providing games and jukeboxes, nothing to do with the fishing industry.
Correct.
Those businesses were not unique to you in Namibia, is that right?
That business, my lord. It's one of the best business that I ever met, that I ever came across.
It's one of?
One of the best gambling business.
Okay.
Mr. Tamson, stop evading my questions. Those businesses were not unique to you in Namibia.
They were.
You are the only one doing gambling. You are the only one providing pool tables. You are the only one providing. Is that really what you want the court to believe?
It's not only me.
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It was not you. You are not. Maybe it's the English.
Yeah, it's English.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. You are not the only one doing this business. It was not unique to you. There were other people doing the same business.
Correct.
Now, why did it see it fit for you to be introduced to this Samerji group?
I don't know. Nobody didn't tell me why.
You don't know.
No, I don't.
Sir, it is because you had become the son-in-law to the Minister of Fisheries.
Thank you for letting me know. I didn't know that.
Okay. And you were actually the one that told them that you were the son-in-law to the minister. It was not from photos. What can you say about that?
My lord, that is Mr. Ipinga's version. Mr. Ipinga was not present.
No. Listen. I'm not here as Mr. Ipinga.
Just allow him to finish.
Oh, yes. Thank you, my lord.
My lord, Mr. Ipinga was not present when I met Samerji Group. That is his version. And I will not comment to what he's saying. He was not present. I was the one who was present, and I'm telling him what happened.
I put it to you further that to prove what you were narrating to them as the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries, you produced photographs of your wedding.
I did not produce any photograph.
That
I
narration of
I
you,
was asked about the pictures of my wedding by Johannes Stephenson. So I showed him pictures that was on my phone, my lord. So I don't know what is Mr. Ipinga talking about.
Okay. I'll show you what I'm talking about. My lord, the bundle that you have prepared is the. Where's your copy? This one. The one that- Maybe my learned friends have. Can the witness be given B17? It's part of the bundle that was prepared by. Can you give him the whole file? The bundle file that we received from the applicants. The bundle is Exhibit B.
I have it.
Yes, specifically B17. Okay. Of that bundle, can you go to B17? That is the statement of Inga Juliusen that you provided to the court.
B?
On number
my
12.
file
on
is
yes.
12.
Yes. So for the court, my lord, page 24 of that statement.
Okay.
Can you please read paragraph 20 and paragraph 21?
Page?
24 of B17.
Paragraph 20 and
21.
2011. Mr. Stephenson arranged for me, him and Elgerson, to meet with a business consultant called Tamson Hatuikulipi. I don't know how Mr. Stephenson came to know Tamson Hatuikulipi, but I do remember that at this time Mr. Stephenson was in discussion with a number of Namibian consultants whom he believed could help foreign defendants to navigate the Namibian market. There was thus, in my view, nothing unusual about Mr. Stephenson's decision to meet with Tamson Hatuikulipi. In paragraph 11, page 6 of his affidavit, Mr. Stephenson states that at this meeting, Tamson explained that he was a son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries and showed a photograph of his wedding to the minister's daughter. This is correct. However, I understand that
Okay? Just end there where it says this is correct. What do you understand? I think before that, we need to go to paragraph 11 of Mr. Stephenson, which your witness says it's correct. Can you just read the first paragraph of that paragraph 11?
During 2012, there was a person, I cannot remember his name, who brought and introduced Tamson and Hatuikulipi to me, Alderston and Ingwa. At that point in time, we were staying in Hilton Hotel in Windhoek. The meeting took place there. The unknown person was trying to assist us to secure quotas for horse mackerel, but was not succeeding in the industry. There are many persons who claim to be well connected, but in reality are not. He introduced Tamson and indicate that he is the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries, Bernard Esau, and could possibly arrange things. That Tamson showed us photographs for his wedding with the daughter of the minister in order to confirm that he was who he claimed to be. He also indicated that he was well connected, and this is how we established contact with him and the rest of the key players. They came to us, we did not look for them.
Okay. Now, we'll stick to your witness, which is also supported exactly by Mr. Stephenson. That witness explains that you explained to them that you are the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries. Is that correct?
That's what he's saying.
Is that correct?
That's not correct. That is what he's saying in this affidavit.
Sir, this is an affidavit that you brought to the court. This is an affidavit that you yourself brought to the court. Your witness is saying that you explained that you're a son-in-law, isn't it?
The witness said, Mr. Stephenson.
Isn't it?
Listen, let me answer. The witness said, Mr. Stephenson states that. Mr. Stephenson is the one who told them, states that at this meeting, Tamson explained that he was the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries. That was now after Johannes asked me.
Listen.
No, let me get there. I'll get there.
What does it say thereafter? What does it say thereafter?
He showed photographs of
No,
his
no.
wedding.
Yes?
Of his wedding to the minister's daughter. My wife is the minister's daughter.
What does it say thereafter?
This is correct.
Good. So your witness is saying, confirms paragraph 11 that you introduced yourself and explained that you were the minister's son-in-law. Is that correct?
I generally don't like to interrupt my learned friend, but my learned friend is clearly distorting the facts. That is not what is written there, that he introduced himself and that he explained. The affidavit that he just read, paragraph 11, reads something totally different. And as an officer of court, you must be open to court. Because what the affidavit that he read, paragraph 11, indicates that he introduced Tamson and indicated that he is the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries, Bernard Esau, and he could possibly arrange things. So the facts before court, and that my learned friend is saying that paragraph 11 speaks exactly to this paragraph, he's distorting the facts. In paragraph 11, Johannes is saying that the other party that introduced them indicated that Tamson is the son-in-law of the minister. So just for the facts to be proper before court, my learned friend can't distort the facts like that, as it pleases the court.
Hello, that is the problem when counsel is the one testifying, because then I don't get to cross-examine him. That paragraph states, Tamson showed us photographs from his wedding with the daughter of the minister in order to confirm that he was who he claimed to be.
I thought he's taking it from where it started. That, as I understand him, he's saying that Mr. Hatuikulipi is being introduced to them, and then that's when they probably engaged, which is the latter part of the statement where you are focusing. So I don't think you are far apart from each other. It's just that he was not happy with you only zooming on that aspect. In any case, it's contained in the affidavit. It can be dealt with.
So, yeah. Mr. Julianson, in his affidavit, does not say that they determined your relation to the Minister of Fisheries through photographs. Is that correct?
What I have testified. Are you laughing? My Lord, like what I have testified, the second meeting, Johannes is the one who asked me about my recent wedding.
Mr. Tamson, did you understand my question? Did you understand my question?
Mr. Ipinge,
Did you understand my question?
you said the affidavit, Mr. Ingwa, it says that.
No, no. I will repeat for your sake. Mr. Ingwa Julianson, in the affidavit you provided to the court, does not say they determined your relationship to the Minister of Fisheries through photographs. That's not what they say. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Ingwa Stephenson, or Julianson, in his statement, does not say that it was Stephenson who asked you to produce the photographs of your wedding. Is that correct?
That's correct.
According to him, in his statement, you explained to them that you are the son-in-law. Is that correct?
What he's saying here, maybe I don't understand it. It says Stephenson stated that at this meeting, Tamson Hatuikulipi explained that he was the son-in-law of the Minister of Fisheries and showed photograph of his wedding to the minister's daughter. So let me
Listen, read the next short sentence.
This is correct.
Good. He's confirming what Mr. Stephenson is saying, isn't it?
Correct.
So what Mr. Stephenson is saying, according to Inga Julison, is the correct version.
Johannes told you.
No. Of what happened at that meeting.
I've explained what happened at that second meeting. What more explanation do you want, Mr. Ipinge?
Do you understand my question? No, because you are being very evasive to my question. And it will make it easier for you if you can just answer the questions that I'm giving to you. I know the answers might be very uncomfortable, but unfortunately, those are the correct ones. In this statement, Mr. Inga Julianson is confirming what Mr. Stephenson told him to be the correct version of what transpired at the meeting. Is that correct? Yes. So simple. I therefore put it to you, sir. Maybe that your version that you told to this court is very, very different from the version of your own witness whose affidavit you produced in this court. Is that correct? I'll repeat my question, perhaps you do not understand it. The version you gave in this court in your examination in chief and earlier in cross-examination is different to the version given by your witness in his affidavit B17. Is that correct?
Asked and answered, my lord. The witness said, I do not agree. It is the exact same question. He already answered it.
Well, he answered it, and you had asked it exactly the same way.
Yes.
But I thought you were giving him an opportunity to
Yes.
deal with the question again. Probably emphasize the parts that you want him to answer.
I've emphasized already. Just want him to agree. Maybe let me put it in a positive manner. Your statements are not the same. About what transpired. Inga Julisen that you produced the affidavit.
What I've testified. Let me repeat what I've testified. When Johannes was doing a presentation to me, my lord, of Semeji Group of Company, we were sitting.
I don't think that's what is asked of you, Mr. Hatuikulipi. It's about your version and that of the witnesses. The question that, the way I understand is, for you to comment as to whether they are different or they are the same.
They are different.
Thank you. Mr. For interest's sake, this very straightforward, clear questions, why is it taking you so long to give an answer to? Why are you being so evasive, Mr. Hatuikulipi? Are you not telling the truth?
I'm telling the truth.
What was the significance of you presenting these photographs? What was the purpose? Yes, asked. Mr. Johannes Stephenson, in his statement that you just read to the court, says that you produced these photographs to confirm that you are who you claim to be. That is correct, isn't it, Mr.?
Repeat your question.
You produced these photographs to confirm to these people that you were who you claim to be. In other words, the son-in-law to the Minister of Fisheries and Marine Resources.
My Lord, Johannes asked me about my recent wedding.
Did you inquire from Johannes, why are you, we are here to speak business. Why is my wife or my wedding have to do with this? Did you inquire from?
That's what I said. I said it. But why? Where did you get this information from? He said I must not worry. So he asked me the pictures from my wedding and I showed him. He was the one who was next to me, showing me the profile of Semeji Group of Company from his laptop. Ingwa and Mr. Anderson were sitting on the other side. Me and Johannes were sitting at the same table.
By producing these photographs, what impression were you creating to the Semeji Group of companies?
Johannes asked me.
How long after this meeting where you explained that you were the son-in-law and you've confirmed with photographs, did Samerji take to penetrate the fishing industry of Namibia? After these meetings where you explained you were the son-in-law and showed photographs, how long thereafter did it take for Samerji to penetrate the fishing industry of Namibia?
I asked my cousin James to assist.
How long? Give me a timeline, Mr. Tamson.
I introduced James to Semeji.
Timeline, time frame, when was it? How long did it take for them to get there?
November 2011.
Mm-hmm.
I met Semeji.
Yes?
I was introduced to Nobel.
Mm-hmm.
2012, I introduced them to James Hatuikulipi.
When?
Beginning of 2012.
When?
Beginning of 2012.
Which month?
Early 2012, January.
January. Mm-hmm. And when did they start fishing?
February 2012.
February 2012. So it was only December, January that they met you. They were already fishing in Namibia.
Correct.
So, and at this time, Willie, Human, and Petrus Nehoya were not involved further from after you met them in November, correct? Because you said you do not know about them.
They were not what? Repeat your question.
They were not involved in getting quotas for them.
I don't get your question. Getting
Willie
quotas.
Human and Petrus Nehoya, from after they met with you, the Samerji, they didn't secure this quota of February 2012 that they started fishing, isn't it?
Now Willie and
And Petrus Nehoya.
I don't know about what business they were doing with Semeji.
Okay.
I'm only aware of Nobel.
Yeah.
Nobeth, the last time I met him, it was at the second meeting.
Okay.
From the third meeting, he was not present.
Okay. So even Nobeth went out of the picture.
He was out.
I'm advised that the witness should move closer to the microphone.
Okay. So from the second meeting in November to February when Samerji started fishing, it was only you and James who was involved in securing quotas for Samerji
From January 2012,
from January 2012.
yeah, it was only James and me that was involved.
Okay.
Nobeth was out.
Okay.
Because Nobeth, when we were supposed to attend the third meeting, Nobeth was not answering his call.
So
From there, Johannes contacted me himself directly.
So what took Willie, Petrus Nehoya, and Nobeth to try and secure quotas a whole year? For you, it was just 1 month. They were already in.
Correct.
Oh.
Sorry.
Correct. Apart from James, is there anyone else that you engaged to ensure, this is now apart from the JVs, right? Apart from the JVs? Listen, I'm finishing my question. Yes, we are still at 22. We are not leaving there.
Okay.
Yeah. Apart from James and anyone from the JVs, leave those people out. Was there anyone, perhaps a family member, that you engaged to secure quotas for Samerji Group?
No.
No. Did you engage your father-in-law, Mr. Bernard Essa, to help in securing quotas for the Samerji Group at any point?
No.
Did you discuss the Samerji Group intention to acquire quotas with your father-in-law at any point?
When you say acquire quotas,
Oh, okay, no. To access fishing quotas. Thank you for being very particular. Did you discuss with your father-in-law Samerji's plan to access fishing quotas in Namibia?
Samerji cannot access fishing quotas. Samerji is not a right holder.
Yes.
And I did not.
Semantics.
I did not.
Did you engage your father-in-law on Samerji's intention to catch fish in the Namibian waters? Now, why was it necessary for you to engage James Hatuikulipi for this project?
Because he had a better understanding of fishing industry and because of his commercial experience in Namibia and his vast network in various sectors in the Namibian economy.
So, according to you, who did the work in relations to convincing the JVs to partner with Samerji for catching agreements?
I approached James to assist me.
Sir, did you understand my question? Did you understand my question?
You asked me.
Mm-hmm.
Who was convincing the JVs?
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yes.
So I said I approached James to assist me. James was doing it.
So it was James,
Correct.
not you.
No.
Okay. Did you also, or you obviously in that January you also introduced to James to Samerji, isn't it?
Correct. Beginning of 2012, January.
So Samerji knew, at least by January, that the person doing the work is James and not you.
No.
Can you please explain that?
He didn't know until I introduced them.
No. After you introduced them, when did you introduce them to Samerji?
2012 January.
So from 2012 January, like you just answered now, Samerji knew that the person doing the work, at least according to you, was James and not you.
Correct.
Then why was it then necessary to only sign a consultancy agreement with you, who is doing nothing, whilst there's James doing the work?
That's how business is done. I did not sign I first signed the MOU in December 2011, before I even introduced them to James. So in that MOU, I have to declare that I will assist them to partner up with a participant in the fishing industry. So it is my project. So now I have to subcontract James because of his experience. I'm the owner of the MOU, not James. So I approach him to assist me to identify the new right holders and to convince them to sign a long-term catching agreement with Samerji.
Just want to get the date of your MOU. Okay. Now, earlier on, in your testimony, you stated that you worked hard to convince these JVs. Do you remember that? No. And for my past 3 questions, when I was putting to you that James was the one doing the work and you were doing nothing, you said that is correct.
If I understood your question very well. Meeting the JVs, it was James who was meeting them.
when I asked you that James was the one doing the work and you were doing nothing, you said that is correct. Do you remember that?
No. How I understood your question. Meeting the JVs to convince them. James was the one who
Mister.
was in front.
That was not my question. My question was, it became clear that James was the one doing the work and you were doing nothing, you confirmed, isn't it?
Doing the work convincing the JVs. That's why I said yes, he was the one who was in front. That's how I understood your question.
When I was asking these questions about James doing the work, I never mentioned JVs, isn't it?
We must be convinced.
Sir, I'm the one asking questions, you answer them.
I'm answering you that.
When I asked you that James was the one doing the work and you were doing nothing, I didn't mention anything about the JVs. Is that correct?
So we are talking about JVs here.
I didn't mention anything about JVs in my question. Is that correct?
Cannot remember.
You cannot remember. Yes. So, James was the one meeting the JVs. James was the one convincing the JVs to enter into catching agreements with Samerji.
Correct.
James was the one setting up the meetings with Samerji and the JVs for their proposals.
Correct, because he's the one who's in front, negotiating now.
The contract or the agreements and the terms that were being negotiated was negotiated by James with the JVs.
Which agreement now?
The agreement between the JVs and Samerji.
Correct. James was the one who was in front, my lord. I got...
Sir, when you give my question, it's fine. I'll ask you further questions. These agreements were obviously legal documents, or they were drafted by those who are in the know-how of the law. The catching agreements between the JVs and Samerji were drafted by some people who have the know-how in law.
Cannot comment on that.
Cannot comment. But definitely it was not you who drafted those catch agreements.
I'm not a lawyer.
Yes. Who drafted these agreements?
Samerji's lawyers in Namibia.
Who?
Whoever the JVs have appointed. Whoever must... that was not between the JVs and Samerji. Whoever their lawyers was.
Do you know who?
No, I don't.
Do you know who signed these catch agreements? The specific person from the side of the JV1. Let me start with JV1.
It's JV1. I don't know JV1.
JV2. Sorry, my brother.
Repeat your question.
Do you know the specific question? Who signed the catch agreement between Samerji and JV2, Sinco?
No.
Do you know the specific person who signed the catching agreement between JV5 and Samerji?
No.
Do you know the specific person who signed on behalf of JV7 with Samerji?
No.
That is because you were not at the signing event. So what was your purpose there? Apart from being a son-in-law to the Minister of Fisheries?
Because he had a better understanding. So James was doing the job. He was doing the work.
So when you said you personally worked hard, you were lying.
Not lying. When he met them, we can sit down and we re-strategize. We help each other. So this is what they are saying. We have to move this side. Let's do this.
Okay. So, and how often would those meetings be?
I cannot recall. It's a
Cannot
lot of
recall.
meetings.
Since when were those meetings?
With now James and Semejo.
Oh, your meetings, you say there were 3 meetings, and then thereafter is January, isn't it? There were 3 meetings in December,
Yeah, before James.
before James.
Correct.
There was only 3.
Correct.
And these were short meetings, nothing in particular, just to say this is what we want, this is how we can strategize.
That's how business is done, Mr. Ibini.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
When James came until February, how many meetings were held?
When James came in,
Yeah.
a lot of meetings. Cannot recall them.
What was your contribution
My
to these meetings?
My Lord, me and James was meeting the JVs to convince them. So once he met them, he called me. That is what the JVs are saying. Let's go and meet Johannes. Then we have to re-strategize.
So the information lied with James, right?
Correct. He's the one who's in front.
Right.
Yeah.
What was your contribution to these meetings, Mr. Tamson?
I have contributed a lot.
Tell us. That's
Yeah.
what I'm asking.
So James will tell us, this is what the JVs are saying. Then we have to sit down and re-strategize that. Okay, if they are saying like this, we have to change now here. If the other operators are offering these terms, my Lord, then we have to change it here. I'm also a businessman. If they are saying this, then you go this way. Then we have to change here.
So let's break it down. Your only contribution was to say, let's change the proposal that we are making to JV number 2, for instance. That's it.
The aim was to succeed. It's not about what, it's to succeed.
No, I will explain to you, because I'm coming from the point where you were testifying here in your examination in chief that you worked so hard. Sleepless nights. Yet your only contribution was, no, let's change our offer because the other people are offering so much. That was your only contribution.
That's what other people, yes, correct. That's what the other consultants were struggling to do.
Yeah. So you are not working hard, mister.
That is working hard. Working hard is not like you are digging sand or what. Maybe you took it that angle. It's not all about it.
Yes. My Lord, there was a request from both parties that we adjourn at 1:45, just to allow running. I think at this juncture it will be appropriate that we adjourn. Then we move on to the next point.
So we'll be back at 2:15. Yes. All right. We'll adjourn for lunch.